The first time my landlord walked into my apartment without knocking, I was half naked and holding a bowl of cereal. The second time, I was at work. That one was worse. Because if he was bold enough to come in while I was there in an oversized t-shirt and underwear, I had to wonder what he was doing when I wasn't around. My name is Ria. I'm 24, and this story is about the year I learned two very important lessons. Landlords are not gods. The city inspector is sometimes your best friend. I moved into the Maple Street triplex at the end of a humid August. It was my first place on my own. No roommates. No dorm rules. Just a tiny one-bedroom on the second floor of an old Victorian that had been chopped into 3 units sometime in the 90s by someone with more ambition than building code knowledge. My landlord, Rick, met me in the driveway on move-in day. He was in his late 40s, with a shaved head, mirrored sunglasses, and a faded landlord's do-it-with-interest t-shirt that made me question my life choices. "Ria?" he said, looking me up and down like he was evaluating a used car. "Right on time. I like that. Good tenant energy." He handed me the keys, a photocopied lease, and a smile that felt slightly greasy. The apartment itself was fine. Scuffed wood floors. Peeling cabinets. A bathroom so small you could brush your teeth while sitting on the toilet. But the rent was almost affordable. The bus stop was close, and the windows let in a lot of light. "Any questions, you give me a call," Rick said, tapping his business card. "I live right around the corner. I like to keep an eye on my investments." I laughed politely. In hindsight, that was the first red flag. I just didn't know yet that keeping an eye meant letting himself into my home whenever he felt like it. The illegal entry started small. A month in, I came home from work and found the bathroom fan cover on the floor. The screws were in the sink. I shrugged. Maybe it had fallen. I put the cover back on and went about my evening. 2 days later, I noticed the oven drawer slightly open. I hadn't used the oven in a week. Weird, but I blamed myself. The real wake-up call came on a Saturday morning. I'd slept in, made cereal, and was dancing horribly to 2000's pop in my t-shirt and underwear. Nova airy. No pants. No dignity. I had just taken a bite when the front door unlocked, then opened. I froze. Rick stepped in, carrying a toolbox. For a full 2 seconds we just stared at each other. Me, clutching my spoon like a weapon. Him, eyes very obviously not at eye level. "Oh," he said. "Didn't know you were home." My heart was racing. "You have a key," I said. "Of course you didn't know I was home. You didn't knock." He shrugged, completely unbothered. "Needed to check the smoke detector," he said. "Can't be too careful. Landlord responsibility and all that." "You have to give notice," I said, heat rising in my face. "At least 24 hours. He waved a hand. "Relax," he said. "I own the place. It's not like I'm going through your underwear drawer." I wrapped my free arm around myself. "You are literally in my apartment while I'm half naked," I said. "Get out." He rolled his eyes. "Fine," he said. "I'll come back later." He left, muttering something about dramatic millennials. I locked the door. Then deadbolted it. Then put a chair under the knob for good measure. Later, I texted my best friend, Alana. She replied instantly. "Girl, that's illegal." She sent me a link to our city tenant rights page. Sure enough, there it was. Except in emergencies. Landlords must give reasonable notice, at least 24 hours, and obtain consent to enter a rented unit. I screenshotted it. Saved it in a folder called Rick. I had a feeling I'd need it. Over the next few weeks, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was just clueless. I texted, "Hey Rick, please give me 24 hours notice before coming over. I work long hours and need to feel safe in my home." "Thanks," he replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Then, 2 weeks later, I came home from my shift at the cafe and found the living room window wide open. In November. It was 40 degrees out. My plants were shivering. On the table was a note in Sharpie. Was checking for drafts. No call. No text. Just entered. I called him. "Rick, you can't keep doing this," I said. "You have to tell me before you come in." "I tried," he said. "I stopped by earlier and you weren't home. I used my key. That's what it's for." "That's not how that works," I said. "You need my permission." He snorted. "I've been doing this 20 years," he said. You're the first tenant to complain. Maybe you're just sensitive. Maybe. Or maybe his other tenants didn't know their rights. I, however, could read. And I'd started noticing other things about the house. Like the third unit in the basement that someone clearly lived in, judging by shoes outside the door, but that wasn't on any of the advertising when I'd signed. Like the fact that the hallway smoke detector was hanging by a wire. Like the mysterious extension cord snaking from one outlet to multiple rooms. I asked Rick once, casually, how many units the house was zoned for. He shrugged. Doesn't matter, he said. As long as the rent's paid and the neighbors don't complain, city leaves me alone. I Googled. The property record said, duplex, but there were 4 mailboxes screwed next to the front door. My landlord was not just creeping into my apartment. He was running an illegal boarding house. Interesting. The final straw came on a Tuesday. I was at work, halfway through a latte rush, when my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I'd installed a cheap security camera inside, pointing at the front door, after the bathroom incident. Partially for peace of mind. Partially because I'm petty. The thumbnail showed Rick walking into my living room. I checked my texts. No message. No missed calls. I pulled the video up, the sound low under the cafe noise. Rick walked in, looked around, opened my coat closet, took out the vacuum. We talked about replacing it. But then he wandered into the bedroom, opened my dresser, pulled out a drawer. My face went cold. He shut it quickly, but still. He opened the bathroom cabinet, peeked in, checked under the sink. Then, as if this was all perfectly normal, he went back to the closet, grabbed the vacuum and left. The video was time-stamped 11:13 a.m. I was 3 miles away steaming milk. I felt sick. I showed the clip to my manager on my break. That's not okay, she said. You need to report that. To who? I asked. The cops? She shrugged. I don't know, she said. But at least send it to him and tell him to stay out. So I did. Rick, I just got a motion alert from my security cam. You were in my apartment without notice or permission, going through my things. This is illegal. Please confirm in writing that you will not enter my unit again without proper notice except in an actual emergency. He replied instantly. Wow, paranoid much? I was checking for a leak. Building owner's right. If you don't like it, you can leave when your lease is up. I stared at the words building owner's right. Something in me snapped. Up until then I'd been playing defense. Locking doors. Saving screenshots. I wanted to go on offense. If he was so confident the city leaves me alone, maybe it was time to introduce him to the city. Specifically the Department of Housing and Code Enforcement. I started with research. Tenant rights websites. Subreddits. City ordinances. Between closing shifts and early mornings, I learned more about zoning laws than I ever wanted to know. Highlights. Our city required a rental license for any non-owner-occupied property. Rick did not have one listed for our address. The property was zoned R2A, up to 2 units. He had at least 4. Basement units had strict rules. Minimum ceiling height, 2 means of egress, specific window sizes. The basement apartment did not meet them. I'd seen it once when the door was open, no proper bedroom window, low ceilings, exposed pipes. Landlords had to provide functioning smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, safe wiring, and properly vented gas appliances. The hallway detector was dead. My stove's exhaust fan vented straight into a cabinet, and there were suspicious scorch marks near the basement electrical panel. This wasn't just a creepy landlord. This was a building full of code violations. Violations that put people in danger. I talked to the basement tenant, a quiet grad student named Lewis. Does Rick give you notice before he comes in? I asked. Lewis shrugged. Sometimes, he said. Sometimes I come home and my stuff is moved. He says he had to check something. I can't afford to move again. What about your lease? I asked. Does it mention the basement as an apartment? He laughed bitterly. Lease? He said. We shook hands. I give him cash. Oh, Rick. You really picked the wrong nerd to creep on. Because where some people see an old house with makeshift walls, I see leverage. The city's anonymous complaint line is a beautiful thing. You call, explain the situation, and they decide whether to send an inspector. I'm a tenant at 312 Maple, I told the operator. My landlord enters without notice, and I have reason to believe the building has unpermitted units and safety issues. There's a basement apartment with no proper windows, no working smoke detectors, and possible electrical hazards. The woman on the phone was calm and efficient. Have you notified your landlord of these concerns? She asked. Yes, I said. He told me if I don't like it, I can leave when my lease is up. She made a sound that might have been a suppressed eye roll. Okay, she said. I'll open a file. An inspector will contact you to schedule a visit. Will my landlord know it was me? I asked. We don't disclose complainant identity, she said. He might assume. But the violations speak for themselves. 2 days later, a man named Harris from code enforcement called. He sounded tired but interested. I had a look at the property record, he said. It's licensed as a duplex, no rental registration. Mind if I stop by next week? I'd like to see inside your unit and the basement if possible. Yes, I said, perhaps too eagerly. Any day after 3 p.m. great, he said. And just so you know, landlord entry without notice is more of a civil issue, but if we find serious safety violations, that can carry fines. We'll take a look. My heart thudded. Step 1, done. Step 2, make sure there was no way Rick could pretend everything was fine. On inspection day, I took off work early. I tidied the apartment not to impress Harris, but to make the broken bits obvious. I made sure the smoke detector still chirped its sad low battery beep. I set my security cam to record. At 3:15 a.m., there was a knock. Code enforcement, a voice called. I opened the door. Harris was in his 50s, with a clipboard, a measuring tape, and the weary air of someone who's seen things. Afternoon, he said. You must be Rhea. I nodded. Thanks for coming, I said. Come in. He walked slowly around the apartment, making notes. Any issues with heat? He asked. It barely works in the bedroom, I said. Rick told me to buy a space heater. He wrote that down. He checked outlets. Any water leaks? He asked. Bathroom ceiling sometimes drips when the upstairs tenant showers, I said. He wrote more. He looked at the dead smoke detector. Has your landlord responded to this? He asked. He took the battery out when it started chirping, I said. Said he'd replace it. That was 3 months ago. Harris's jaw tightened. That's not optional, he muttered. I took a breath. Can I show you something else? I asked. Sure, he said. I pulled up the security cam video of Rick going through my things. Harris watched, expression hardening. Entering without notice is one thing, he said. Rifling through drawers is another. Did he give any reason? He said he was checking for leaks, I said. In your dresser? Harris said dryly. He shook his head. I'll note it, he said. We'll forward that part to the tenant relations office. Now about the basement. I took him down the narrow stairs. Lewis met us there, eyes wide but grateful. I'll show you, he said. The apartment was worse than I remembered. Low ceiling. No proper bedroom window. Exposed junction boxes. A gas heater that looked older than I was. Harris measured the window. Not big enough for egress. He checked the heater. Where does this vent? He asked. Lewis pointed vaguely toward a duct. Harris followed it. The pipe ended in the crawlspace, not outdoors. He swore under his breath. This is a carbon monoxide nightmare, he said. Has your landlord pulled permits for any of this? Lewis laughed hollowly. Permits? He said. He told me to keep it quiet so the city wouldn't jack up taxes. Harris took photos. Checked his boxes. He asked about the number of units. 2 on paper, 4 in reality, I said. There's also a guy in the attic. Rick calls it a studio. We took a quick look upstairs. Attic guy, Amir, had a bed under a sloping roof and one tiny window. Ceiling heights under code, Harris said. And this stairway is not an approved fire exit. By the time he finished, he had a page full of violations. He thanked us. Said he'd be in touch. Rick still didn't know. That changed a week later when he got his first citation. I knew the exact moment he read it. Because my phone started vibrating like it was possessed. 9 missed calls. 6 texts. Rhea, what did you do? Did you call the city on me? We could have worked this out like adults. Do you have any idea what kind of fines I'm facing? Answer your phone. I didn't. Instead, I waited. Because I knew he'd eventually show up. He did. Banged on my door like the police. Open up, he shouted. You think you're smart? You just screwed everyone in this house. I hit record on my phone. Opened the door with the chain still on. Is there an emergency? I asked. Yes, he said. You called code enforcement. Correct, I said. Because you kept entering illegally and ignoring safety issues. You just cost me thousands of dollars, he snarled. Do you know they're threatening to shut down the basement and attic? I'll lose half my rent. That's between you and the city, I said. Maybe you should have registered the property and pulled permits. He leaned closer. You're out at the end of your lease, he said. Rent's going up 40%. Good luck finding anywhere cheaper. That would be a legal retaliatory eviction, I said calmly. I've already spoken to tenant legal aid. If you attempt that, you'll be seeing more of the city. And maybe a judge. He stared at me. You think the law's on your side? He spat. In this case? I said. He muttered a string of curses and stormed off. I closed the door. Saved the recording. Sent it to the tenant relations email Harris had given me. 2 days later, Rick got another letter. This one specifically mentioning alleged retaliatory conduct toward complainant tenant. He stopped calling. For a while. Over the next month, the building turned into a construction zone. Rick had 2 options: fix the violations or shut down the illegal units. He tried to fix. Sort of. He hired the cheapest contractors he could find, unlicensed guys in unmarked vans. They knocked holes in walls, ran new wiring, ripped out the basement heater. Harris came back for follow-up inspections. Each time, more issues popped up. Unpermitted plumbing, improperly grounded outlets, missing handrails. At one point, the city slapped a stop work order on the front door because Rick hadn't pulled a single permit. I watched it all with a mix of vindication and secondhand stress. Because here's the thing, I didn't actually want to be displaced. I liked my apartment. I just wanted to be left alone and not die of carbon monoxide poisoning. So when Rick finally realized he was in over his head and put the house up for sale, I had feelings. Complicated ones. The listing went live with carefully cropped photos. Charming duplex with potential. Potential indeed. A few weeks later, a woman named Karen, unfortunate name, lovely person, bought it. She sent a letter to all tenants. Hi, I'm the new owner of 312 Maple. I'm working with the city to bring the property up to code. All existing leases will be honored. I take tenant privacy and safety very seriously. Please reach out with any concerns. I was skeptical. Once bitten, twice suspicious. But when she scheduled an actual time, 48 hours in advance, to come and introduce herself, I felt hopeful. She knocked, waited, didn't use her key. Already an improvement. We sat at my kitchen table. Rick left quite a mess, she said. But we'll get there. I've already pulled permits for the necessary work. The basement and attic are being converted back to storage. Those tenants will be relocated to other properties I own with rent credits. Wow, I said. That's... She smiled. Self-preservation, she said. Fines are no joke. And I've been a tenant myself. I know how it feels to have your landlord treat your home like their playground. She slid a piece of paper across the table. Here's my email and the number for our management company, she said. You'll always get at least 24 hours notice for entries, barring actual emergencies like gas leaks. And if anyone comes in without your consent, I want to know immediately. I blinked. This is different, I said. I can't fix what Rick did, she said. But I can do better going forward. For the first time since moving in, I believe that might be true. Sometimes people ask me if I feel bad for Rick. For the fines. For the lost rent. For the fact that he had to sell at a discount because the violations were now on public record. Short answer? Longer answer. He had years, decades, even to run his property legally. To treat tenants with basic respect. To not carve illegal bedrooms into every spare corner and call it maximizing income. He chose shortcuts. And those shortcuts put people at risk. Lewis could have died in that basement if the heater malfunctioned. Amir could have been trapped in the attic in a fire. I could have come home one day to find my stuff rearranged, and no proof of who'd been there. Instead, because of a $30 camera and a willingness to dial the city, we got working smoke detectors, code-compliant wiring, a landlord who actually knocks, and a small but important reminder that I've been doing this 20 years doesn't mean I'm untouchable. It just means no one held him accountable before. My landlord entered my apartment without permission. So I let the city inspect every illegal upgrade he'd ever tried to hide. He thought shining a light on his building would expose me as a problem tenant. What it really exposed was him. And if there's one thing I've learned from this, it's this. When someone is more afraid of the inspector than they are of breaking the rules, that's exactly when you should make the call.